Hey guys, Alex here. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be sharing with you the home loan interest rates of different banks and also Pag-ibig for 2022. When it comes to buying real estate, one misconception that first-time buyers have is that they have to put up the entire amount in cash. So for example, if the property is, let's say, 10 million pesos, then you would need to have 10 million before you can buy the property. The good news is you don't need 10 million to buy a 10 million peso property. You just need 30 to 40% of that amount if it's a ready for occupancy property. If it's a pre-selling property, then even better because you'll only need the reservation fee, which is between 20 to 100,000 depending on the developer and depending on the project as well. And of course, you will need sufficient monthly income to be able to pay for the equity later on and the monthly amortization at the bank. So let's say you are planning to invest in a property, or you have already bought a pre-selling property and it's now nearing turnover, which means you now have to apply for financing. Which bank is the best? As a rule of thumb, it is better to apply at the bank that you already have a relationship with. So for example, if you've been a depositor of, let's say, BPI or BDO for 20 years now, then best to go with that bank because you already have a relationship. The bank can easily pull your records, and they can already check to confirm if you are capable of buying this property. Especially if you have applied already for loans with your existing bank, with your main bank, and you have fully paid on those loans, then that will give you a better credit rating. So plus points yan sa bank. Also, another advantage with applying with your main bank is that you can negotiate on the interest rates, especially if you are a preferred client. Banks fight over each other to get depositors to loan from them, so a qualified borrower is an asset to banks. Now, let's start with the prevailing interest rates of different banks for 2022. So, quick disclaimer, these rates may change at any time since bank rates tend to fluctuate. So, best to confirm with your bank of choice before going with them. So, first up is BDO. BDO is one of the banks that I recommend to my clients because they have very competitive interest rates and they really have fast processing and approval, good customer service from their home loan officers. They respond very fast to my inquiries, my questions, and my clients as well. So their fast response time also allows me to respond quickly to my clients and to provide better overall service to them. So for a 1-year fixing period, the interest rate, if you're new to BDO, is 6.25%. But if you're a preferred client or an old depositor, an existing depositor for many years already, they can give you as low as 6% for a 1-year fixing period. For a 2-year fixing period, it's the same if you're a new depositor at 6.2%, whereas for existing clients, 6%. For 3 years, 3-year fixing period, it's at 6.75%. For new clients, while 6.5% per annum for existing clients. For a 4-year fixing period, BDO interest rate is at 7.25, and also same for 5-year fixing period, 7.25 for new clients, while it's at 7% for existing clients. What does fixing period mean? It means that for this time span, the interest rate for your loan is fixed at this rate. So after the fixing period, it will then be recomputed depending on the market rate. So most banks also have a minimum loan amount of 500,000. So this is why socialized housing projects, you need to loan from Pag-ibig because the loan amount of socialized housing is at 450,000. Next bank is UCPB, United Coconut Planters Bank. So their loan rates are as follows. So for a 1-year fixing period, it's 5%. For a 2 to 3 year fixing period, it's 5.75%. And for a 4 to 5 years fixing period, it's at 6%. And the next is we have BPI, Bank of the Philippine Islands. So their rates are as follows. For a 1-year fixing period, it's at 6.75%. For a 2-year fixing period, it's at 7%. For a 3-year fixing period, it's at 7.5%. 4-year fixing period is at 7.75%. And 5-year fixing period is at 7.9%. So usually I recommend a fixing period of between 1 to 5 years because more than that, 5 years, it's gonna have a high interest rate already. Like for example, for a 10-year fixing period, it's already at 10.2% interest. So that's quite high. So between 3 to 5 years, it's still very manageable and still very competitive. BPI also offers refinancing, by the way. So this means if you have an existing loan with another bank, you can transfer that loan to BPI and get some cash on your equity. So when you use a cash out refinance, you take out a new loan that's bigger than your existing mortgage, and the new loan amount is then used to pay off your current home loan, and the remainder would be returned to you as cash back. So this would only make sense if you're planning to use the money for business, so it would earn more compared to bank interest rates. Otherwise, you would only be incurring more debt and increasing your monthly amortization. Next is we have EastWest Bank. So for a 1-year term, it's at 5.7% interest. 2 to 3 years is at 6.7% interest. 4 to 5 years is at 7.2% interest, while 6 to 10 years is at 7.3% interest. Most banks have a maximum loan term of 20 years, but there are banks like EastWest and Maybank that have a loan term of as long as 30 years, similar with Pag-ibig. And then next, we have Metrobank. So for Metrobank, they have acquisition, refinancing, or construction loan. So these are the different types of home loan that you can apply for. So for a 1-year fixed term, the interest rate of Metrobank for a home loan, acquisition, or construction is at 7%. For refinancing, it's the same at 7%. So actually, home loan acquisition or construction or refinancing has the same interest rate, but when it comes to equity loan, it's a bit higher. So this one is at 8% for a 1-year loan term. For 2 years, it's at 7.5% for refinancing or acquisition or construction, while for equity loan, it's at 8.5% interest. For a 3-year fixed term, it's at 7.7% for refinancing, acquisition, or construction, while equity loan is at 8.7%. And then for a 5-year fixing period, if it's for home loan acquisition, construction, or refinancing, it's at 8.25%, while for equity loan, it's at 9.25%. For those who are not familiar, equity loan is when you take out a mortgage on an existing property that you own, which is not a new acquisition. So usually the interest rates for equity loan is 1 to 2% higher than a home loan, because interest rates on home equity loans are often higher than rates on traditional mortgages, because typically the more that you borrow, the higher your rate will be, and your credit score will also have an impact on the home equity loan rate that you've offered. And the next bank is Maybank. So for a 1-year fixing period, interest rate is at 6%. For a 3-year fixing period, it's at 6.25%, and for a 5-year fixing period, it's at 7.5%. And then we have RCBC, Rizal Commercial Banking Corporation. So for a 1-year fixing period, it's at 5.25%. 3 years, it's the same, 5.25%, while for a 5-year fixing period, it's at 6.25%. Now let's go to Security Bank. So for a 1-year fixing period, it's at 6.5% for a regular home loan. 3-year fixing period, it's at 6.75%, and 5-year fixing period is at 6.25%. So as you can see, equity loans are still at 1% higher compared to a regular home loan. And then we have Pag-ibig. So Pagibig Fund released a record high 24.2 billion in home loans during the first quarter of 2022, an increase of 3.26 billion or 16% compared to the 20.94 billion released during the same period last year in 2021. The head of DSHUD, Secretary Eduardo Del Rosario, says that we are happy to report that we have again posted a record high in home loan releases in the first 3 months of 2022. Our strong start this year means that more Filipino workers have been helped by Pag-ibig Fund in acquiring their homes. So the sustained growth in our home loan disbursements also contributes to the economy as we continue to help our members and the country recover from the pandemic. Del Rosario also added that the amount of home loans released by the agency during the first quarter enabled 22,210 members to acquire their own homes, a 7% increase from the 20,712 members helped during the same period in 2021. So he further added that out of the total amount, 1.78 billion were released as socialized home loans benefiting 4,000 plus Pag-ibig Fund members belonging to the minimum wage and low-income sector. So this is really good news because there are really a lot of people who don't have homes yet. So socialized housing projects and Pag-ibig play a big role in being able to provide homes for those who are minimum wage or low-income earners. Meanwhile, Pag-ibig Fund Chief Executive Officer Ahmad Rizaldi Moti noted that the agency's performance at the start of the year is a continuance of its record high achievement in 2021 when the agency surpassed 100 billion in home loan releases. So after coming off a record-setting 2021 with 100.8 billion in home loan release, he says that they have yet to set another record high in housing loan takeouts for the first quarter of 2022. Pag-ibig's performance in the housing loan front is an indication of the trust of the members in their program. So more importantly, the record high numbers show that increasing number of Filipino workers are enabled to have homes of their own. So their aim is to keep their interest rates low and competitive to be able to help more Filipinos become homeowners. So that is the Lingkod Pag-ibig way, according to Moti. The interest rates of Pag-ibig housing loan remains at low levels because their goal is really to help Filipinos secure a home under the most favorable and affordable terms. So here are the Pag-ibig rates effective of January 1, 2022. So for a 1-year fixing period, rate is at 5.7%. For a 3-year fixing period, it's at 6.3%. And for a 5-year fixing period, it's at 6.6%. Whereas for a 10-year fixing period, it's at 7.3%. So actually, Pag-ibig and bank home loan interest rates, they are usually very similar, although sometimes Pag-ibig can be a bit lower, or sometimes banks can also have lower interest rates. So they fluctuate a lot, but more or less they are very similar in terms of like where they are at. Like the interest rates per annum, very similar whether it's the bank or Pag-ibig. Prior to the pandemic, the interest rates were at 6 to 6.88% for a 5-year fixing period. Now most banks are offering 7 to 8% for a 5-year fixing period. This is because BSP has decided to raise the key policy interest rate to 3.75%. And the key rate is the specific interest rate that determines bank lending rates and the cost of credit for borrowers. So on August 18 of 2022, the BSP decided to raise the key policy rate by 50 base points to 3.75% effective August 19, 2022. So this further action is meant to anchor inflation expectations and avoid a breach in the inflation target range in 2023. So any adjustment made by BSP will roll over to the rest of the banks and also with Pag-ibig. And that's it for today's vlog. Make a comment below what you think of this year's interest rates, and if you want to be updated of new listings and projects in Vismin or the Philippines, send me an email so I can add you to my mailing list.